Hi, everyone. It's Brian Kilmeade Show. Thank you for being there. We're here. Mayor Glenn Jacobs is going to be with us. Not only does he do a great job in Knox County, Tennessee, he's known as a WWE Hall of Fame professional wrestler who has another chapter in his career. He was known as Kane. Marcus Lemonis has never wrestled, as far as I know, professional. We don't know. We could be freestyle. And he's Camping World CEO and host of The Fixer on Fox on Fridays at 8 o'clock, and now also airing on FBN on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. It already aired on the network, and now is streaming on Fox Nation as well. And Marcus, we wear you out because it seems like one day a week we get you coming on Fox Business and being here. Do you like this? Does it feel like a gym almost?
I do like it. In fact, I've had the opportunity to do some stuff on Bottom Line, and so I love that as well. It doesn't feel like a gym. It feels like an opportunity to share ideas and share conversation. And I look back at what's happened with Charlie over the last week, and I think the idea that people can have a conversation and not always agree and have an intelligent conversation, I think that's going to be something to look forward to in the coming months.
Yeah, I think, I was talking to the radio people, the radio experts the other day about like where the business is heading. And they say people that are not dug in ideologically, where they're predictable with exactly what they're going to say on every issue, is the future. Is it that you're open to hearing the other side and can be convinced at certain moments? They think that there's only one Rush Limbaugh. And maybe there was a time in which everybody wanted to be Rush. I have the answer to everything. Yeah. Right? And I think the viewer, the listener, is saying, I know you don't. And there's no way everybody has the answer to everything on every issue. And there's no way every party gets it right.
When you look at the things that we cover here at Fox, whether we're covering politics and policy or we're covering monetary policy, I think where monetary policy gets involved, you want to spur a little bit more debate about that. And whether it's the housing market or interest rates, ideologically, we're all the same in terms of being conservative about how we treat people and how the world should work. When it comes to money, I think there's a different opinion.
You want diversity of opinion.
I want different opinions because I want people to find the best solution.
Because my future could be on the balance because of it.
And what's important to you financially is very different than what's important to me. And I think the ability to have that dialogue is really important.
Where do you think the economy's at right now?
I think the economy is in a little bit of trouble. Whether we get a quarter of a point or a half a point, I think a half a point would signal something very bad. I think you'd see the 10-year actually skyrocket.
Even though people would benefit from that.
Well, they'd benefit short term, but what most people would say is, what does that tell you about the underlying foundation of the economy? If you have to go to a half a point, what's the real problem? Are the jobs numbers worse? And when you don't trust all the data that you're relying on that's coming out that has been, quite frankly, invalid, and then you see a half a point, you wonder, what does the boogeyman have? What does the Fed have that we don't know about it? Are they independent? Are they not independent? There's a lot of monetary issues that are concerned.
It's just so interesting and counterintuitive for non-economics majors. So you say to yourself, I'm raising rates. I'm raising the interest rate because I think inflation is out of control. That worries you, right? Correct?
I'm raising rates because I think inflation is out of control. Or I don't want to bring rates down because I think the bringing of rates down is going to spark inflation. This inflation is different than what we saw during COVID. This is transitory, where prices are moved for a specific reason as opposed to demand. We know we don't have a demand problem. You can look at the housing market. The housing data came out today. Another 32, same as last month.
What is 32? What do you mean?
Well, it's essentially the sentiment of what's happening in the general housing market. The concern that I have is that it's 32 in September. It was 32 in August, but in September, the rates are at 6.3 as opposed to 6.5, 6.6. So we saw a discount in mortgage rates. We didn't see a spike in demand. Is that because of unemployment? Is that because it takes a minute to settle in? The 10-year Treasury is what needs to be unlocked more than the rates themselves.
So just back to the rates for a second. Could I just bring you to the pedestrian? You know what someone's saying? I have a pretty good house. I'd like to get a better one. But I got 3.8% interest rate.
Not going to move.
Not going to move. Because they were so low.
Well, Brian, it's a math calculation, though. And this is the one thing that I think people need to understand more. When you're thinking about your monthly payment, you're thinking about two principal inputs. What's the price of the house and what's my interest rate? And together, those make a payment. And people in America buy and live off of payments. So if I can get a great deal on a house, if the rate's a little higher, it still all matters what my payment is. The problem we've had for the last couple of years is we have high prices on houses and high prices on rates. Those two things don't work well together.
And we don't have enough.
Well, we say we don't have enough, but are there people walking around? No. We say we don't have enough because we want to drive prices down, but we have tariffs on steel, on wood. So how are you going to make houses for less? The only way you're going to do that is you have to move away from city centers. That's the only way that's going to happen. Now you're telling people to move 30 minutes away. Well, now my gas is going to be more expensive to drive. So there's all these puts and takes. At the end of the day, we need the rate to stabilize. We need in my opinion, we need the mortgage rate to have a 5 handle in front of it and not a 6. And we need prices just to settle.
So I thought President Trump said something interesting yesterday. He goes, why are these companies reporting quarterly to their shareholders? In Europe, they don't. And they spend so much time getting their reports ready, they're not running their company. You run a big company.
I run 2 public companies today.
How do you feel about that?
And I commented last evening on it that, in my opinion, there has to be a balance between 2. Today there's 4 beefy quarterlies. Those are called Qs. And for the annual year, you do what's called a K. That sort of summarizes everything. To move to 2 times a year would be okay. I don't know what they would call it. But what information are you providing to the market inside of those stub 6 months? Are you going to have to flash revenue? Are you going to have to flash gross profit? What are you going to have to show people? Because 6 months is a long time not to give any information. And 90 days is too short of a period that every 90 days I'm revving up, file the queue, have a call, go on the road, answer questions. When are we going to run our business?
Yeah.
And that's for me been the biggest frustration. Is like every time I think we're done, we're revving back up again.
Right. So what's your suggestion?
My goal would be to have reporting done in a more formal, more robust, fulsome way twice a year. It almost looks like a K where there's more disclosures. And then on a quarterly basis or even a monthly basis, you're flashing some sort of information. I think everybody's like, well, there's going to be less audit fees. There's not, because if you provide a flash, which is just a top line look at what's happening, demand, file size, whatever it may be, you're still going to need somebody to opine on it. A lot of people are saying, well, there's going to be fraud and there's going to be dishonesty. Well, you probably shouldn't be investing into a company that you believe the leadership, if they're given 2 reports instead of 4, are now all of a sudden going to pull the wool over your eyes.
Right. And how did the business community, I know you speak for yourself, but you talked to all your friends. When he said that, did people say, I hope we can follow through on this?
Well, nobody thinks it's a good idea to report more often. So you talk about taking regulation out, taking costs out of the business. What you're doing is you're giving me time back. You're giving CEOs time back.
Right.
That's really what you're doing.
I think that's good. Bed Bath & Beyond, how it's going?
It's going fine. It's going great. I mean, listen, we need the housing market to get better. It will. The RV market is better, and our Camping World's doing well. In both cases, the RV business and the housing market are really good flashing points for what's happening with the general consumer. Not as good as it should be, but not terrible.
Have you talked to people, it's not in your business, that have felt the clampdown on illegal immigration on the workforce?
In terms of no. I thought there was going to be more. I haven't even heard it from folks that own big restaurant chains. And so what that tells you is more people have been doing it right for probably the last 5-6 years than before. I would imagine that certain services in certain markets are probably impaired, but I haven't seen it.
So I'm looking at the TikTok deal. As long as China does not have any say in it, if they're going to give up the engine and not have anything to do with that, I just don't see how TikTok is not a security risk and China totally lets it go. A partial sell is not good. Would you agree with that?
Well, you don't want China to own anything, but I think China's going to hold the line on what they want to have the DNA into TikTok. And TikTok is a very special DNA. And a lot of Americans, young kids, middle-aged kids, do a lot of commerce on there. Getting them out from the ownership stake is one thing, but there is a secret sauce to TikTok. As Americans, we sometimes take things like that and we mess them up.
So that is true. If you talk to Mr. Wonderful of Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary says, just give me the followers, give me the users. I don't need the special sauce. We can handle it. But if they hold on to that, that means they have a way of disseminating what America's up to. They can continue to monitor it.
You know, I love Kevin. We all do. I'm not sure what Kevin's going to do to keep that special sauce alive. He may have ideas that I'm not aware of. But ownership is one thing, and the walls around the information are another. The idea is to protect the users in the United States from having their data stolen and having things infiltrate their own lives.
On the news feed, I ask people all the time, have you ever seen anything pro-Taiwan? Have you ever seen anything that was pro-Israeli? I mean, the ratio of like 10-1 positive stories for Israel on the TikTok newsfeed. And it comes down to fundamentally this, which is not necessarily business, but do you want another country controlling the number one news source for the next generation? That's why Congress acted. That's why I know the president's hesitating because a lot of people make money on there, but security-wise, this should have been sold already or disseminated.
Well, it's about controlling information. And I think that's ultimately what the Chinese government wants. They want to control the information out, and they want to control the data in. And I think that's the big fear. I do have some concerns over some of the things that domestic social media firms are doing. I know it took a lot to get some of the Charlie Kirk videos down. It took a lot to get a lot of other hate speech off of those sites. There's a balance to me between freedom of speech and creating nonsense for people to process in their brain. And you wonder if assassins and killers and people that aren't wired properly are taking all this information in, and it's controlling their brain in a very negative way.
And do you think that China and Russia and North Korea wouldn't have figured out a negative way to affect Americans' brains?
Of course. And they may already be doing it.
That's what worries me. Then that's why I might go back. The President of the United States, we had a famous fracture with India, but now we seem to be making steady progress with China. How does that reflect on American businessmen? How do you guys view this?
Well, China, when you say there's progress with China, progress towards a trade deal?
Yeah.
I don't think any trade deal is going to come together until we know how the Supreme Court is going to rule on whether the tariffs can stay or not stay. I'd be very surprised, because how do you ultimately structure something if you don't know what the ruling's going to be? If the Supreme Court comes out and says everything could stay, you probably get a deal quicker. If they don't, does it change the dynamics pretty dramatically?
We lose a lot of leverage with China.
You lose a lot of leverage, and seeing China, India, and Russia having a little powwow on a Sunday is probably the reason Trump's in the UK.
Do we know the episode that's going to be airing this week?
The episode this week is a business out of New Jersey. It's Healthy Italia. It's a small restaurant cooking school concept. And, it's hard to really focus on that business right now. All the things that have happened in the last week. It's funny. I've been doing a lot of podcasts talking about the fixer. And to be honest with you, the only thing that needs to be fixed is the way people are thinking about communicating with each other. Mm-hmm. Small businesses need help. I'll always be there to do that. But right now, our society needs help.
So do you think you could play a role in that?
I think I do every day.
Just by being you?
By trying to set a good example and do the right thing and try to deal with discourse towards me, about me, around me in a different sort of way.
Right. I understand. Hopefully people recalibrate. We're hearing all the guy that you were sparring with a short time ago, punch him right back in the face, and a lot of the rhetoric and the Hitler talk. I think we might have learned something through this. Do you think that we have?
I've noticed Gavin Newsom a little quieter in the last week.
Not a word.
A little quieter in the last week. And I think somebody had to say to him, please don't be part of the problem. Stand on your own 2 feet. Fight on policy, not on fanfare and a bunch of nonsense. I still haven't heard from him. As I told you, we had a nice text exchange. He was
because you said, I'm not going to do a Bed Bath & Beyond in California. It doesn't make financial sense.
Not going to put a Bed Bath & Beyond in California, not because I don't love the people of California, but I have an obligation to shareholders, as everybody that runs a company does, to deliver a profit. And if you go into a situation knowing that the possibility of making a profit is slim to zero or negative, you can't do it. No matter how great the top line could be, you have a responsibility to bring home an acorn, not leave one there. And California today, and I don't think it has to be forever, leaves too many acorns behind. What I want Gavin Newsom to do, and I've tried to make this message clear to him, is sit down with business leaders who you diametrically disagree with and understand where the middle ground is, which means I have to compromise too. This idea that businesses that don't want to be in California don't want to protect workers is nonsense. This idea that we don't want people to make more money is nonsense. What does matter is, what are the regulatory constraints that you've put around businesses? Why have people left? Why aren't people coming? Beautiful place to live, wonderful people, and a lot of wealth in California. So on the surface, you would pick California as the first place you'd open. You do your research, it's the last place you probably want to be.
And the other thing I think is important, too, is when you talk about minimum wage. He wanted to just unilaterally raise minimum wage without even, I guess it's a promise to a fast food magnet guy. I'm not sure what he did, but minimum wage is something you should talk to business people about. You're not looking to starve the entry-level worker, but the math has got to make sense for you, or else you're going to go to automation, or you're not going to be able to open.
It's very simple, and I hate to liken it to just making hamburgers. There's a certain price for a hamburger. There's a cost to operate. There's rent. There's taxes. There's all these things, and you can predict out what your volume's going to be. And at the end, there's going to be yield. One of the biggest inputs is labor. And if you break the labor model and take it away from free enterprise and a free market, you're essentially telling the business owner, we're going to create a fixed cost, just like your rent. So you have two choices, lose money, or three choices, lose money, leave, or raise your prices. In all cases, isn't it really bad for the consumer if the hamburger now goes up by $1? I don't think people really understand that what ultimately happens in California is there is California pricing and there is pricing everywhere else.
Right.
So who bears the brunt? The consumer.
Right. And they don't have a Bed Bath & Beyond to kick around anymore. Marcus Lemonis, thanks so much. I know there's a lot of serious stuff going on, but it's great to get in part of the drama with your new show, The Fixer, on Fox. So check it out, and also get it on Fox Nation. Back in a moment. Hey, welcome back, everyone. It's my privilege to have in the author, Senator Joe Manchin. His book is now out. It's called Dead Center in Defense of Common Sense. Of course, the former U.S. Senator from West Virginia and governor from West Virginia, who I first met because he had a coal mining accident. And we met this governor. We're going live, and we said, this guy is fantastic. Then he ends up running for senator, where he questioned himself almost every day. I used to be able to run a sane state, and now I've gone to this insane District of Columbia. Senator Manchin, welcome. Congratulations.
Thanks, Brian. Good to be with you. I'm glad to get it done. You know, I didn't know if I was ever going to do it because I'm not a type of person to start talks about people, but I wanted to put it in writing how the place used to work, how it doesn't work now, and what it takes to get it back. And the decisions I had to make in tough situations when there's a 50-50 Senate, I had to reach back to where I came from and how I was raised to be able to withstand that type of pressure and be able to do what I thought was right for the country.
And you open up with that story.
Yeah.
It the Rescue Act? The Rescue Bill? No, it was the Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction Act.
But it was the original version. And the original version would have put about $6 trillion. It was going to cost about $6 trillion.
No, that's the BBB. The Build Back Better was basically Joe Biden's signature. It was a Democrat signature. We had the ARP first, American Rescue Plan, and I begged them not to do that.
They did it.
They did that one, okay, and I told the president at times,
and just to refresh everyone's memory, coming out of the pandemic, we had to tell the whole country to stop working, but we were writing checks already. In fact, whatever Trump put out in his last year, the Congress would add more.
When Trump was there, the year that Trump, his last year in 2020, we ended up, okay, the end of 2020, we put $3.2 trillion into the market. Bipartisan, President Trump, all of us working together, trying to keep the country from crashing. That was done 3.2. We run the country on about a little over $5.5 trillion of cash. That's what it takes to run the country. So 3.2. Joe Biden gets elected, comes in office in January. First bill out of the chute was American Rescue Plan, $1.9 trillion. And I said, Mr. President, don't do this with a nuclear option.
You just did 3.2. Yeah.
That's 5.1 now. We put enough out. We doubled the amount of cash flow in circulation in 1 year. You can't digest that. The system wasn't built for that. And we saw what came from it. And they wanted to do BBB, which was another 6 to 10 trillion.
Right.
And
where did you put the brakes on?
At that one. After 8 months of getting beat up.
So you took the rescue plan.
I took
and you,
the rescue plan.
I tried.
Well, the rescue plan, I tried to do exactly what you said. We've got a pandemic. We have a pandemic going on. We have a vaccine that worked. The President, Trump, should take credit for getting a vaccine to market quicker than ever been done that was needed, saved millions of lives. So he did that. And then we had people that had money. We sent a lot of money. I just told you, $3.2 trillion. So they had money. They couldn't go anywhere. Now we had a vaccine to work, and they start moving. They wanted to go buy things. They wanted to do things. Nobody was going back to work. Prices were skyrocketing. I said, you people are crazy. We're going to have one heck of an inflation problem. And we went through all of that. And I says, you want to come out now with another bill that basically is going to put more? Can't you let us digest this first? And I've always been differential to a new president coming in. Republican, Democrat makes no difference. Whoever that new president is, He's been elected, she's been elected, whoever,
You're
through the
open.
process. I want to help you. And they always have something that they said, well, I just got elected. I ran on this. And you got to help me. And I said, Mr. President Biden, I said, why don't you put it in the jurisdictional committees and let them work it? Give them 90 days to see if they're going to work with you or not before you do down this road. But I knew at that time, probably Chuck Schumer says, we got to do it. Got to go into reconciliation, which is a nuclear option. Republicans are starting to do the same thing now. And these are my friends. I said, guys, be caution. Be very cautious. Right. What goes around comes around. And we're trying to tap it down a little bit, because you start usurping and going around the checks and balances that we have in the process. The Senate is unlike any institution in the world. The Senate is the most deliberate body, because it's hard to get things passed. It's even harder to get rid of things. When you start short-circuiting that, you get a problem.
When he invited you to the White House, what was that for? The BBB, Build Back Better.
Build Back Better. He kept saying, I said, Mr. President, let me 8 months I've been getting the letter.
Do you want me to read the excerpt from your book? Said, after President Biden and I sat down and exchanged brief pleasantries, this is in the family room of the White House, Jill Biden stopped by to say hello. Yeah. Her presence immediately set the tone for the meeting, as I had already made it clear in my prior meeting with the president that I did not support the free community college tuition plan, a cause that she championed. Let's just say the atmosphere started off chilly. What do you mean?
Here's the thing.
Did she yell at you?
No, not at all. I could just tell. And they've always been very kind to me.
Unspoken tension in the room was palpable.
You could feel it. It was palpable. And the only thing about it, here was my difference about free college. I'm all for, if I identify I need workers, and we're at community college,
sure,
then basically
Trade
say,
school.
here, go into school, take your loan out, go to school, finish up. You finish, you graduate, I'll take care of it. I discount it. You pay nothing.
Do something for it.
You earn it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you the money on the front end, because most of the kids basically drop out after a year or two till they find themselves. I wasn't going to waste more money. So that was the difference we had. I wasn't opposed to what they wanted to do. I was opposed to how they were doing it. So there's a better way. But anyway, that started off a little bit chilly, but then she was very kind, shook hands, she left, and just the president and I were there.
And then when you thought about it, you let him know.
I told him this. I said, Mr. President, listen, you and I are about the same vintage. You're a little bit older than me, but not that much different. I come from the school John Kennedy asked not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I think that basically public service is the noblest of all professions. I got into it because I wanted to do something. I wanted to give something back. I said, Mr. President, we passed this piece of legislation, what you say is your marquee, your Build Back Better bill. You're going to change the psychic of the nation to how much more can my country do for me. I wasn't raised that way, and the book basically goes into how I was raised. And I says, I don't believe that, nor can I vote for it or explain it back in West Virginia. So I can't do it.
So you made a call, and you called to somebody back in the White House, Lance. You called Lance?
Lance is
your guy. So you called Lance right before the interview. You told him to call the White House.
No, that was when I was going for Brett Baer. Let me tell you how that came about. The president says, Joe, I'm going to make an announcement, put a statement out, and we're going to basically wait until we come back after Christmas vacation.
He told you to think about it.
And he said, I said, Mr. President, if you want to wait, that's fine. I'm not going to change. But I said, you do whatever you think you have to do. Okay, I understand that.
So Bill Clinton calls you,
Everybody calls me. I had calls from everybody. Everybody called. And the bottom line is I listened to him. I said, I appreciate all that, but I said, I've got some concerns. I never jumped and ragged on anybody. But I wasn't going to get there. They knew that from day one.
Can I tell you subtext?
Yeah.
The subtext wasn't to save the country. The subtext was to push an agenda, and it was a green agenda. You're in a coal state and an oil state. You're an environmentalist, but you're a rational environmentalist. Yeah. You can't destroy the country and go green.
We're all
destroy
environmentalists.
The combustion engine and go green. That's not the way it's done.
Brian, we're all environmentalists. We all want clean air and clean water, okay? The bottom line is we have to work to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, money we didn't have for programs we didn't need. Yeah. That's not a good combination.
Well, the social agenda, giving everything away. I'll give you a little one. They said, well, Joe Manchin's against child tax credits. I'm not against child tax credit. I just think that basically the parents should have a job that need the credit to help take care of their kids. If you're sitting home, why should we be giving you money for child tax credits when you're sitting home with your children? Okay?
Right.
And I said, I know
it's supposed to be in theory for nursery school, for daycare.
It's supposed to basically allow you to have freedom to go to work and earn a living for your family. Yeah. And I said, I want that. But I said, we need it from 25,000 to 75,000 single moms. They're out there trying to make it. They need that help. That's where our most attention should be. So the incentive was go to work and we'll help you take care of your child so you can work in peace. They didn't like it about that. And I said, listen, guys, can't get there. So then his staff put out a statement. I said, I want to see the statement. And they said, well, the president still has to do some more work with Joe Manchin. And I'm thinking, I've just been getting all these death threats. Why would you say and put me in the crosshairs?
Coming up to your boat.
I've had everything. Anything I'm thinking. So I'm thinking, listen, I can take this harassment. Don't bring my children and my grandchildren in. And I had to hire private security to protect them for a long time. And I said, so I had Lance West, my chief of staff, I says, make an amendment there and send it back and say, listen, just put generic. Say the president needs more work to do. He needs more time for more work. We not only sent it back, it went back to the president, the White House. Had to be his chief of staff and their staff there. It no sooner got there and it came right back. Nope, we can't change it at all. Got to be Joe Manchin. I said, oh, you want to play this game? You want to threaten me? That's what I said, oh, no. So then I'm thinking, okay.
Calm down.
I'm going down. I was hot. So I'm going on Brett Baer on a Sunday. He had a Sunday show that morning. That's after Chris Wallace had left and everybody was jockeying around. So I said, sure, Brett. 2 weeks before that, he called me and I said, hey, Brett, I don't have anything to say. I had nothing to say. I says, we talked about it. He said, oh, Joe, just come on. He said, we'll just see what's going on, okay? I said, buddy, if you think it'll help you, I'm happy to do it. So I already committed to Brett. It wasn't like I called Brett and I want to go on. I was already scheduled. I wasn't going to cancel.
So it ended up working out perfect, though.
So I'm sitting there at 8 o'clock in the morning. You know how you send the mobile homes, the mobile studios to us? And I had two press releases ready to go. I was sitting in that van at 8 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't do it no more. I said, it's over. My family is worth more than that to put me in. And I already warned everybody. Whether the president, Joe Biden, knew about this or not, his chief of staff definitely knew about it. And that's who was running the show. And they were coming to put the hammer on me. I said, okay, yeah, big boy. And so I made a decision. I told my chief of staff, I said, Lance, I said, call the White House and call Chuck Schumer and tell him I'm going to kill BBB. Then I turned off my phone because I knew it was going to blow up. So I'm getting ready to get my mind ready. I go on, and here's Brett. Joe, well, you know, there's a lot going on right now, and this bill's still being negotiated, and they're trying to push it for Christmas and this and that. I think this was on Sunday, like the 17th or 18th of December. And he says, and I don't know, are you still having problems? I says, no. I can't do it, Brett. And I thought
he was stunned.
I thought he was going to fall off his chair. He's sitting there. He says, what? I said, I cannot do it. He says, you telling me you're not going to vote for it? I says, I cannot vote for this bill. And I says, I'm not going to vote for that bill if it came up. But once I said that, I knew it was dead. And he says, oh my goodness. So anyway, my phone blew up and this and that. I forgot to turn it on. I turned it on. There was a pretty explicit, direct message from President Joe Biden. And I've known him for a long time. We're friends. I like him. Good person. We always got along well. We just disagreed, okay? We respect.
But he used to agree with you, is what your point was.
That's exactly.
You
he
said,
used to be in the middle.
That's
exactly.
This is not your bill.
You're right. I told him that. This is not your bill. This is Bernie Sanders' bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so.
And did he have an answer when you said that?
He said, no, Joe. He says, no, it's my bill. I said, Mr. President, I've been there for 10 years. This is every Tuesday during a caucus, Democrat caucus. This is what I heard every Tuesday. All this social reforms, giving everything away, okay? Giving college free. Everything's free. Where I come from, you had to work and earn it. But you had to have compassion to take care of people who couldn't help themselves. That's it. And this is not what the Democrat Party I know. Anyway, the voicemail from the president was rough.
You still have it?
Yeah, we still have it. It was rough. And I pretty give it to you right exactly.
Is this when you said, if you kill this effing bill, is this it? We'll never speak to you again?
No, that was an ARP.
That's a different one?
That was the first, the American Rescue Plan.
Oh, okay.
Because I stopped it down because I said, you're going to extend unemployment benefits when people should be going to work? He said, if you kill this effing bill, he says, I'll never speak to you again. I said, Mr. President, if I could kill this bill, it'd be a miracle, because I can tell you why. You've sent a check to everybody. And if you missed somebody, it was by mistake. It wasn't by intent. You want everybody to get a check. And this is crazy. You got to put them back to work. So that's how that one went. That didn't go well. Now, this is even more. This is after the BBB. This is 8-9 months after that. And he just went off. I mean, hard. And I said, oh, wait a minute. He says, what you've done to me, no one's ever done before. He says, this is absolutely horrible what you've done. And to go on Fox and do this to me? Oh, and then I heard it about 11 o'clock. I called. And he started, oh, wait a minute, Mr. President. You say what I did to you? You want to know what you did to me? What your people did to me, whether you know it or not? Put my family in the crosshairs?
Right.
And I was hot. So it's kind of too hot.
Oh,
He
yeah.
finally says, listen, Joe, we got a pissed off Irishman and a pissed off Italian. Maybe we better let this cool off for a while.
Back in a moment. So it's always great for me. One of the finest people I've met since I got this job is Joe Manchin, and he's finally putting his career on the printed page. It's called Dead Center in Defense of Common Sense.
It's coming out. You can get it now. Start making your orders,
Today's
please.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Today's Tuesday, yeah.
It's 16th.
Oh, 16.
Yeah, we're coming out. I think it should be Wednesday here, isn't it? What's the date
No,
today?
no, you're out today.
Today. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can buy today.
Yeah, you
It's
better
out.
buy today.
I
You
hope so.
kidding? Yeah. You don't have to wait anymore. I downloaded it this morning. I prefer to read everything on the iPad because I can
Well,
make
and also
highlights
I
of it.
did audio. I read my own book on audio, so you can get audio.
Not AI.
Not AI.
So you just finished that story. You were constantly fighting. You said you guys got to both calm down after you clashed with Joe
We
Biden.
clashed with him. I said, and he said, you better calm down. So 3 months go by. The Ukraine war starts. We have no energy. I come back and I said, listen, I'm chairman of energy. And I told Schumer, I said, you got a problem with energy in our country. We're not producing. Under John Podesta, Joe Biden, all these people.
Paying Venezuela to
I
go
know, it
do
was horrible.
again.
Yeah, and taking sanctions off, letting them come back into the market. Turning a blind eye to the ghost ships coming out of Iran because he wanted to put global.
Crazy.
It's all crazy. And I told him that. And Schumer said, well, you're chairman, write a bill. I didn't want to be back in the crosshairs. I already killed BBB. Death threats fell off. When I killed the bill, all the death threats come off. Okay, it's over. Well, I wasn't getting back in that situation, but I knew I had a responsibility to make sure our country was producing energy. This bill should have been called, it was my fault. I should have named the bill the Energy Security Act, because that's exactly what it did. We start producing more
What
gas.
was the name?
What
was
Inflation Reduction Act. And it just had a bad connotation. And I put all the stuff that I talked to my Republican friends in my energy committee into this bill, but they couldn't vote for it because it came through the reconciliation. That's the bad thing. And that's why reconciliation separates you, pushes apart. And my good friend John Thune and
Which
all
means
my
simple 51 votes. Gets
simple.
it. You
And
don't
my
need
good friend,
Republicans.
yeah, that's exactly. And my good friend John Thune and all my Republican friends, I said, guys, listen, you can't go down this road. We protected filibuster, okay? You always basically said that you would always protect the filibuster. Don't start nibbling away at the edges, because what goes around comes around. And I'll guarantee you, the Democrats already told me back in 2024, before the election, and Kamala Harris said, I'll get rid of the filibuster. That's when I said there's no way I could ever vote or support her any way, shape, or form.
Because it would change everything. It would be exactly like the House.
It's a flip-flopping back, and we have no stability in the world market. None. Right now we do. When we pass something, it stays there. It's really secured. When we want to get rid of something, we have to work hard to get rid of it. Got to make positive changes. That's what gives us a stability in the world as they view us.
And that's why you wanted Republicans to win the Senate.
I told him I
You
wanted the
told him.
Republicans to win the Senate. I told Chuck, Chuck, you've already told me your game plan.
Right.
You're going to go with Kamala Harris and get rid of the filibuster.
Do you think he's going to shut down the government now because of the heat he got for not doing it last time?
It's not. Forget about the heat. They're all leaders, whether it be President. Right now, President Trump. I've said this about President Trump. He's our leader. Okay, he's your president. Do everything you can to help him be successful, but speak truth to power in a respectful way. And I'm begging the president right now. I'm praying for his better angels to say, Mr. President, let's calm it down. Let's calm everybody down right now. Okay, all this rhetoric going out. My heart bleeds for Charlie Kirk's family, and all of us should. But this is too frequent across the country. It continues to happen, and all the little children in schools are not safe. We got to just calm it down.
I hear you. Senator, we'll have you on again and have you on TV
Dead
too.
center, baby. Come on.
Dead center, pick it up.
Buy it
You
up
heard
today.
Make him number one.
Number one,
Senator,
please.
Senator Joe Manchin, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
Kash Patel is testifying now on Capitol Hill. This is scheduled, but everyone's watching now. We're dipping into it on the network and here because the impact of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then what happened in Minneapolis, and then you think about what happened at that church, at that school, with those kids being targeted by that trans shooter. There is so many things worthy of investigation, but I don't know if it's legislation. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, they're wondering if they should fund the government or not. All indications are, in speaking with Senator Thune, I think the Democrats feel as though they got to make their stand, and they're not going to look to even have a CR. Senator James Lankford, one of the coolest heads in Washington, Homeland Security, Intelligence, and Finance. Senator, do you think we're heading towards a shutdown?
I hope we are not headed towards a shutdown. That doesn't help the country. There are folks that are always charging at the politics of running out a government shutdown. It's a charge of the light brigade every time. It literally wastes money every single time with a $37 trillion total debt. We don't need to do things that waste money. We got to figure out how to be able to spend less and save more. And so that's what we should be focused on. Right now, Brian, as crazy as it is, we want to just take the current government funding that we're doing right now. This shouldn't be controversial. What we're doing right now, keep that going for 7 more weeks while we negotiate the rest of next year's spending. Democrats are stepping in and saying, no, we want $300 billion in new spending on healthcare issues if we're going to extend for 7 weeks. If they're doing that for 7 weeks, I can't wait to see what they're going to ask for 7 weeks from now to say, okay, to do the rest of the year, here's what we're looking for. But we've just said, let's just keep it open as it is now. Let's keep negotiating.
Yeah, and when's your deadline?
The deadline is actually the 30th of September. We got to have it done by midnight, 30th of September. So we've got a couple of weeks to go still on it. But next week is a Jewish holiday, and so part of the week we are out of session for the Jewish holiday for Rosh Hashanah. But we are obviously we still got to get everything done by the 30th of September.
Senator, I know a lot of people are thinking about how to looking at the Charlie Kirk horrific assassination and thinking about how you stop the next one. And they're thinking those boys in basements, young men, rudderless on the internet. That's not every killer, but it does seem to be this one. And then you look at the killer in that school. He was pretty isolated, or she was pretty isolated. That trans shooter was pretty isolated too. Is there a bigger story? Is there something we could do in a big way to stop the next attack that you've seen in studying the last few?
Yeah, so the couple of things I think of on this first, just, you know me, I'm a pastor before I was ever in Congress. This is a spiritual issue that's happening in the country. As more and more people are getting more and more isolated from communities, they're backing away from their relationship with God, or they're just saying, hey, God's not important in my life. Moral issues are not important in my life. I can make up things as I want to go. There is no moral foundation in our culture. As those things occur, we lose the most basic principle. What a lawyer came to Jesus once and asked and said, what's the greatest commandment of all the commandments in Scripture? What's the top one? And Jesus said, well, I'll give you the top 2. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Literally all of our society historically has been based on that. And as people walk away from that and to say, hey, I don't care anymore about church, about God, about spiritual things, we're also walking away from that basic moral foundation of the most essential things in life is to be able to figure out how do we love God, how do we love people. And as we lose that, we lose the culture and people drift off into violence. As Charlie Kirk said, when the dialogue stops, the violence starts. That's the first big one. The second big one is how do we stop this algorithm that pushes people into rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and crazy. If you go look at one crazy thing, the algorithm on social media sends you another one, and eventually that becomes your new reality. You think everybody in the world thinks this when it's only this fringe group thinks it. That's a legislative issue that we got to figure out. Not free speech. Government shouldn't be involved in free speech. But if they're intentionally sending you things that get progressively crazier, they're controlling and actually sending that messaging to you. Maybe there should be some culpability there.
So the algorithm that TikTok has is a lot better than even what Instagram has. So they're actually, I even think some moments they're reading your mind. Sometimes you're thinking to yourself, hey, you know what? I got to start shopping for a car. And next thing you know, you got these cars popping up. And I think it's going to a whole new level, and I think they'll find that out. But certainly when they're listening to our conversations, if you and I are talking about, something, next thing you know, you got all these different people speaking about it on your algorithm. How are you supposed? Okay, you're trying to sell me something. That's fine. That's our culture. That's why you have marketing. That's why you have commercials. But how do you know what's bad? What's bad? Obviously, if you're going to urge me to commit suicide and give me ideas, that's a problem. I don't know if you could put that into a program or not. But a lot of this is these people are in their own worlds. They don't have to meet other people. They just sit online and they sit down and there's no outside resources needed. As Dr. Drew told me last hour, he goes, you realize this happened during the pandemic more than anything else. People who were there were told to stay there. And that's when this kid dropped out of school, by the way.
Yeah. He did, actually. It became more and more isolated, and that is the challenge now, is that you can literally function in complete isolation. You could watch everything online, do everything, work online. You can order your food online. You're not interacting with people at all, and that isolates you more and more and more. We do need each other. As much as we irritate each other, we also need each other in that interaction, that human dialogue, that encouragement that can happen only with another person is actually interacting with you. And so as we isolate more and more, it does make a difference. Oklahoma schools, by the way, have now – there's a law that's been passed in Oklahoma. For the last month we've been in session, bell to bell, no cell phone. So if students cannot bring their cell phones into class, they can't turn them on, they can't have them. What I've talked to with teachers, with parents, with even other students and administrators, they're saying the whole dialogue in school has dramatically changed in Oklahoma in the last month because people are actually talking to each other, interacting with each other. They're not on their phones. They're not cyberbullying each other in the hallways. It's a dramatic difference that has occurred just by saying at school, you're not going to have your cell phones. You can't have them at all. And that changes the atmosphere. And quite frankly, that's not a bad attitude for a lot of people to be able to say, how do you get a break away from all the social media noise?
Yeah, I hear that. So how do you think Kash Patel's FBI has handled the investigation?
Yeah, obviously, everybody, the first time they do anything like this, you make some mistakes as you go through, so I give him some leeway on it. He's trying to get information out as fast as he possibly can, and sometimes when you're fast, you're not accurate. And I think he has learned some of that as he has gone through the process of just trying to get things done quickly. But everybody is wanting it as fast as they possibly can. And the challenge is if you don't get information out fast, then the conspiracy theories grow about what it is. So he's trying to get facts out as quickly as he can before conspiracy theories grow in the process. Mm-hmm. So there is that balance. I trust Kash. He's trying to do the right thing on it. He's trying to be able to lead well in this area, and I think he's going to do fine. But, yeah, everybody's jumping on him for announcing too quickly on some things. He's trying to get ahead of some things and doing his job of trying to make sure the FBI is as transparent as possible.
Right. He said I could have phrased it differently. He said he made a mistake in that, not so much putting something up, but what he actually said in the post. Like, we have a person, we don't know if it's it. If he's the guy we're investigating, probably would have been better. And he kind of admitted that. Here's what Todd Blanche said about the criticism. He's the Deputy Attorney General, Cut 11.
That's ridiculous. I mean, nobody should be surprised that CNN is being critical of anything this administration does. But that being said, Director Patel, why did we catch this man? We caught this man because that's exactly right. And why was his photo plastered everywhere? Because of the work of the FBI and local law enforcement. Why was the video released? Because Director Patel was there getting it done. If he wasn't there, CNN would have the same report and said, shocker, Director Patel wasn't there.
So there's some pushback because there was some talk about an internal strife. I happen to make some phone calls too. It's not there. There's natural tension for people who want to be successful. Sure. But, so I don't know what you're hearing, but I kind of like the way this Trump team is functioning.
Yeah, they're functioning well, and all this back and forth about, that Kash Patel was pushing to get the video out as fast as possible, and local law enforcement was pushing back and saying, no, we need to slow down, and Kash was saying, get it out sooner. It was the back and forth between, if we put up the video too fast, we're going to get 10,000 leads. We can't chase 10,000 leads on it because 9,999 of them are going to be wrong, and we got to be able to sift through and find the first one. Kash's focus was get it out faster right now while people are looking at it. He made the right call. It got out there. The family actually looked at it and said, oh, my gosh, that's my son. And it started a whole contagion of response on it. So he made the right call on that.
I like the fact that President Trump talks to us all the time. And he's actually not talking to the media. He's talking to us, the people. Right. And I also love the fact that these guys are always holding press conferences, whether it's Sean Duffy or Kash Patel or Tulsi Gabbard. I feel like I'm in the know. And it just wipes out a lot of the questions. Senator, I know you I know you do a lot of events. We only have 20 seconds left, but are you changing your schedule now? Or are you still doing events? Are you still doing public appearances?
Yeah, still doing public appearances, still doing events. I was at a high school football game last Friday night and wanted to be able to visit with people. I'm still going to be out there. I'm still going to do what I can on it. But obviously we're paying attention, trying to be smart as well as being wise.
Senator James Lankford, thanks so much.